Mark, if you could just start out with a quick overview of what you see in Wyoming and what you would like to see your team accomplish this week.
I'll go the last part first. We need to improve. That's just a steady climb of improvement is something that we want to be a hallmark of our program and our guys identifying things that we got away with in a win last week, just like we did in the first week, and got better. I think we played better in every phase. There's still a ton of areas of improvement, whether it's individually or collectively, by unit. And then what was the first part? That general overview of Wyoming. I think they're an extremely well-coached team. You can see the differences from the Wyoming film from last year to this year, and significantly the difference between the North Dakota State film and where they are now in terms of kind of the development of their program. They're very multiple on defense. Offensively, they want to be physical and run the ball and play take their shots and play action. A very capable group of people to do that right now. And then they're probably still in the development stages of getting all of their defense in. As far as at North Dakota State, they did a ton of defense. And they had kind of a unique start to their season in the two teams that they played are drastically different with Air Force and Montana, and so it's one of those deals where we didn't get a ton of film that is similar to what we do, and so that's a little bit difficult. In special teams, they do a tremendous job of scheming by week. They're again drastically different every week in their approach, which that's a sign of a game plan of a attack mindset in the special teams area that they do a great job with.
Last week against Michigan State, you said that one defense they ran really well, but didn't really stray a whole lot from that, at least when they line up. This week, it sounds like you're going to see multiple things. What are the challenges of going from that kind of vanilla, seemingly same thing every time, to they'll throw the kitchen sink at you?
It is drastically different. I mean, they're our defense that our offense plays against is I would say more similar to Michigan State than different in that way of they line up in similar ways and attack from multiple areas from a similar starting point. These guys are completely different. They base their roots are out of a 4-3 Tampa 2 defense, but then they're all over the map. They play a little match man with pressure, a bunch of third down coverages, some quarters, some man. They mix in enough of everything to make you prepare for a lot of stuff. And so it's just like anything. We want to identify it, communicate it, and execute against it.
Mark, you mentioned Craig Bohl and his success a little bit in North Dakota State on Sunday, but can you talk a little bit about that and from your perspective, how impressive what he did at North Dakota State was, regardless of the level, for him to build the type of program success that he had? Absolutely.
I was thinking about that this morning, and he's won more games in a row than I've been a head coach. So that's pretty impressive. And when you're talking about multiple national championships at anything, I mean, that's difficult to do, particularly in a row. He's had a bunch of guys that have been with him for a long time, something very similar to our situation in terms of a staff, not quite to this extreme, but a bunch of guys that know what they're doing, and then they know, kind of what people try to do against it. They adjust very well, and they have a plan.
Mark, obviously, when you took over for Chip, you wanted to keep things a lot the same as much as possible, I would think. Looks like they have a dramatic turnaround from going spread to more of a pro style. And this defense you're talking about, it's a lot of the same guys who gave up tons of points last year. How do you explain that dramatic transition, I guess? Yeah,
it is significant, and their scheme is, like you said, 180 degrees from what it used to be, although they still have some of those elements. I mean, there's a little bit of empty, a little bit of those principles, but much more of a 21 personnel, bigger personnel type of mentality. Offensively, defensively, it's completely different as well. And so there's just that learning curve that they've given up 25 points in 2 games, and so they're doing okay in that regard for sure.
Mark, what can a big win early in the season do for you guys kind of shaping the rest of the way, especially in terms of confidence, and how have you seen that play out the last couple of days of practice?
I think if you guys have a little bit more confidence and maybe just an air, especially of our younger guys, of going through a game like that with some punches and counter punches and grinding it out, that hopefully can do nothing but make us better. I haven't seen any indication of, okay, we can just sit back and relax. We've made it, and I certainly hope nobody's of that mindset. I don't, haven't seen it yet, and a bunch of the leaders have talked about that, as well as the coaches. We've been have certainly brought that up. But our first 2 days of preparation have been good, have been solid, and we're just we're in the Cowboy game week.
Mark, kind of along that same vein, how do you avoid a letdown after a big win like that, playing a team that you overmatch Wyoming on paper?
That's your statement. We are consistent in our approach. We're consistent in our approach to South Dakota. We're consistent in our approach to Michigan State, and we're consistent in our approach to Wyoming. And that's not just everybody's the coach speak or whatever the right phrase is. Our guys and our staff definitely believes in our process. We believe in how we get ready for opponents. And if we strayed from that for a quote unquote bigger game, or varied from that in a what you just said, then we're full of beans.
Mark, when you're playing a team with such a new coach and a new system, do you put any emphasis on what that coach has done? For example, both North Dakota State, do you watch that film? Mm-hmm. And how much do you balance that with the 2 games they played so far?
It's difficult. That's probably one of the biggest challenges in this game is yes, we have all the North Dakota State film, and we've watched a bunch of those opponents, and then you have to kind of, for instance, they played South Dakota last year, and watching when we were watching South Dakota's defense from an offensive standpoint, you're watching North Dakota State's offense, and you're going, wow, these guys are really good. They had like 2 of the first 3 plays, don't quote me on that, were touchdowns against South Dakota, and you're kind of going, okay, this is coming down the road, and they did a fantastic job there, obviously. And so you take that and you try to match up a similar team or a similar program or a similar style, and you have to try to find that. And then you do the same thing this year. But the 2 games they've had, as I said, Montana and Air Force were polar opposites in terms of their approach. And there's just not that much carryover. They're just different systems. It's not level of play or anything. They're just different systems than ours. And so you have to kind of pick and choose and just be ready for a lot of stuff.
When we were asking Marcus about that shovel pass he made to Royce, and I think a lot of people thought he had the option of being able to kind of tuck and running it around there. He said, frankly, Royce was 6 yards ahead of me, so that's why I threw it. What's that kind of go to like Marcus's ability as a mobile quarterback, that he's still kind of looking for that guy even 5 yards ahead of him, even though we all know he has the ability to turn that corner and make that run?
I said that's how Coach Frost drew it up, so that wasn't how Coach Frost drew it up? That's it? No. I think Marcus, he was a little bit off balance, and Royce was clean, and he probably just thought, he's the type of guy that doesn't think very much. It's just one of those awareness deals where just get it in the guy that's looks like Royce and in space. And he does, and we all have a ton of confidence in Royce as well as other guys when they're out there. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think he thought he was cleaner.
All through fall camp, you guys said on special teams, punt returning and kick returning, there was like a pool of 6 or 7 guys who could do any of those spots. Are you guys closer to finding the 1 or 2 people on kick returns who will be your guys from here on out? Devin kind of returned a lot, and Thomas did in that second half.
Yes and no. I mean, we've had good competition there. Some guys haven't been as consistent in some area, whether it's, we get a lot of pooch kicks and squib kicks. Communication is a huge deal for those back end guys. Being consistent, fielding the ball, being consistent as an off return blocker element. Those are all things that guys are at various stages of development, let's say.
Mark, back here, with the loss of Andre, how does that affect the rotation?
Right here. Andre's here. He's not lost.
Without him being available then on Saturday, what does that do to your offensive line rotation? I know Tyrell has stepped up, but have you brought other players in to help with that rotation, or are you happy with the rotation as it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things at every position. I'm not, it's not unique to the offensive line. The guys that we have are the guys that we have, and we have a ton of confidence in every one of them, and we want every one of those guys to get better. How much variation in terms of multiple guards or multiple tackles, that kind of thing that we'd rotate through, that'll have to change a little bit. But our guys, Wood does a great job of cross-training them in the off season, fall camp, spring ball, of, the right tackle can play right guard, the right guard could play left tackle, etc. So hopefully there's not too much of a drop off, and we don't expect any.
Mark, from the South Dakota game to Michigan State, Don Pelham said that you guys, he wasn't happy with the defensive performance. You needed to refocus and work harder. And then at halftime, obviously, you made some adjustments and you weren't happy with the second quarter performance defensively against Michigan State. But the second half was better. How do you bottle that second half performance against Michigan State for a full game? Because eventually you will play a game where you can't have those lapses.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of your psychology hat and your teacher hat, and just the taking that and learning from it. Our guys did a great job of taking what we needed to improve upon from South Dakota into Michigan State, and then there's waves. Part of that we caused, part of that Michigan State caused, because they're outstanding. But our breakdowns were manyfold. It wasn't just the defense. It wasn't just the offense. It wasn't just special teams. And hopefully we all got it out of our system in one quarter. But just like anything, we identify it, talk about it, flush it, and move on.
Mark, I know a couple of springs ago the Pac-12 officials experimented with using two officials on the offensive side of the ball in the backfield. And I was kind of surprised to see when the Big Ten crew showed up that they used that mechanic. I wasn't aware that it had been adopted anywhere else. I was wondering what your thoughts were about having that second person back there. Did you notice any difference in the way the game was called? Worried about maybe missing a pass interference down the road with only one back judge? And just what your thoughts are on how the game is administered with that mechanic.
Well, it's actually an eighth official, so there's actually an additional official. Okay. So there's the traditional 7 officials, and then I think one conference calls it. I think the Big Ten calls it the center guard. What is it? Yeah, center judge, and then another conference, Big 12, I think calls it the assistant referee. So he has an A on his back, but. I don't know. I was worried about certain elements of it in terms of, like, if you were trying to clock the ball in a no huddle situation, that those kind of mechanics, just because it was different. We did kind of a little study on that going into this game, because we knew we were going to have the Big Ten crew, and we had watched when we were playing Texas. The Big 12 uses that 8-man crew, and so we had a bunch of film on that, and theirs was a lot different. There's always, it seems like it's a little guy that's sprinting in out of there to spot the ball, and the Big 10 seems like it's more of a traditional umpire flipped over, and so yeah, it didn't really have any effect.
What do you get out of Tyler being in the box? And what kind of you point? I know he doesn't have that big of a responsibility at this point, but what do you, if any, benefits do the coaching staff on the ground get from a guy like that who so recently played?
Right, that's a good question. I don't know if we get any benefit out of it. No, I love Tyler. Tyler's one of my favorite guys on this team, and one of my all-time favorites. And obviously, like any guy that's not involved in the area or in the way that he wishes to be, we want him to stay involved. And that was. I think he's up there right now for safety more than anything.
With Charles Nelson making, a ton of plays on special teams last week, and then even the week before, does that eventually make you guys want to force your hand to get him onto the field more on one of the sides of the ball? And
John Neal keeps recruiting him. Yes, yeah, he was awesome. I mean, he had one play. He was literally tackled on the one play before on a kickoff cover, and then he came down again, and the guy tried to tackle him, held him, spun him around. He got double teamed, came off, and made that play at the 13. That was an unbelievable play. And the guy he is special. He's putting it all together. As many young guys are in terms of offensively, special teams, all that stuff. But he definitely will have a much more substantial role here going forward, just as he layers on some experience. But he's that guy's special. I mean, he's got an unbelievable feel for high speed change of direction and being able to stay on the move and make contact that like he does is rare.
Does his future still lie kind of solely on offense?
Well, it depends if you ask Coach Neal or not. Then he's recruiting him like heck right now. But he's also a very special player with the ball in his hands, as you know, as we saw in the South Dakota game, and this game was just a little bit nuanced in some ways, and we had some guys, you know, between Keenan, Dwayne, Devin, Darren Carrington, you know, all those guys that we had in that just a little bit more experience, maybe is the right word. But Charles is a special guy.
Mark, fair or not, one of the things people have been saying is that Oregon can't play tough. Do you feel like the book is now closed on that argument?
You just asked the question, so apparently not. But it's I have no idea. That's you know, that's not something we worry about.
Go ahead.
On Sunday, you'd mentioned B.J. Kelly being your scout team, one of the players of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else on the scout team, players of the week, are usually young guys.
Yep.
Is it rare to see an older guy kind of check his ego like that and excel on that scout team role when he, you know, his classmates usually in the rotation?
I would say that is the norm, and that's kind of human nature. But around here, there's been several exceptions, and he's one of them. You know, he's definitely one of them. I made a big deal out of that in the team meeting that a guy, you know, especially that position, that type of profile, those guys want the rock. They want to play a lot, all that stuff. And the guy has done a great job, not a good job. He's done a great job on the scout team offense and special teams units, has been outstanding. And, you know, you take a guy like Yele Ford, same thing. You flip it over to the defensive side. You've got Grant Thompson over there, Isaac Ava, you know, all fifth-year guys that make unbelievable contributions to our team. And that's what our guys, for the most part, you know, there's still some young guys that are getting it. For the most part, they understand that. Those guys, you know, when there's a guy running a release that takes two defenders with him and somebody else scores a touchdown, we get 6 points. It's not 6 points to Andrew Greif. It's we score, and so that's you know, part of our special sauce around here is those guys realizing everybody matters. Every single person in this building helps us play on Saturday better.
And was there someone he mimicked specifically last week with it?
I think so. I would have to go back and check, but I think he was. What was the other guy's name too? They were both. I think, yeah. They were rotating. Yeah. This week he's the Claiborne. Is it Claiborne? Number 9. Number 9. He's number 9.
Mark, is Chance Allen still a part of the team?
Chance Allen, as of right now, is still a part of the team.
KEZI in the back. I think Jake had
Follow up to B.J. Kelly. When you talk about him being you know, a scout team, playing great on scout team, is that because he's great at mimicking the Michigan State player that he's supposed to mimic, or is it because he's playing hard and giving the defense someone tough to guard? I mean, what constitutes being a great scout team player?
I think all those things. I think being, you know, especially for his age at his position, that whole deal of being 100% into it, giving great effort, having a great attitude. Scout team is not, you know, that's not something that people would sign up for. Hey, I want to go over and get bashed in the head for 30 minutes every day. That's not literal. You can't even make jokes anymore. You can't go, you know, get beat around, not in the head, for an hour and a half every single day. And he's done a great job. Those guys run a ton, you know, especially between special teams and offensive scout team units. And so it's just not easy. And he's had a great spirit about it, and hopefully will continue.
Any other questions? I guess not. Oh, I'm sorry. Andrew?
Sorry, one last thing. For me is just, you obviously are pretty busy every weekend, but have you had much time to see any of the other Pac-12 games and first impressions from the first couple weeks?
I don't have any impression. I'm the only. Who did I see the other night? UCLA was on after our game, right? Like at night. I saw a little bit of that game, very little. But yeah, not enough. That's why coaches shouldn't have much say in anything, because you don't get to watch anybody else play. Yeah.